Greetings. I'm going to try that again. Greetings. I know I'm in the place now. To all of our visitors, those of you joining us live via live stream, members of the Dorothy Vaughan family, those who may be in our overflow for tonight's lecture, our Daily Planet Theater, members of the media, museum staff, management, and leadership. My name is Amelia Cowens-Taylor, and I am the Assistant Head of Communications here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. I am also the Community and Programming Coordinator for Race, Are We So Different? I am delighted to welcome you tonight to the latest installment in our speaker series for race called No More Hidden Figures, STEM Diversity in the 21st Century. Tonight, you will hear from an amazing speaker, Shaw University President, Dr. Tashni Dubroy. But before we bring her up, I'd like to acknowledge the sponsors and community supporters who helped to make this exhibit and our speaker series a reality. First, however, let me please acknowledge our director, Dr. Emlyn Coster, whose leadership and tenacity cemented the process to bring the 8-year journey to Race Are We So Different to fruition. Let's give everyone here a hand. Now to our sponsors. Thanks to generous support, we have been able to raise more than $330,000 to make sure that Race Are We So Different is free for the people of North Carolina. This is unprecedented for us, and it is because of our sponsors that we are able to do this. With funding from the Ford Foundation and the National Science Foundation, Race is presented locally by the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, with additional support from Duke Energy Foundation, the City of Raleigh, Wells Fargo, Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and additional programmatic support from BB&T, Burroughs Welcome Fund, who sponsored tonight's lecture, as well as the entire speaker series. Duke University Center for Genomics, Race, Identity, Difference. Dr. Charmaine Royal is here as well. She is the sponsor of our cultural conversations with this exhibit. The Paul Green Foundation, the NC Humanities Council, the YMCA of the Triangle, and additional media support from UNC-TV and Radio 1, as well as WRAL-TV, Capital Broadcasting. Let's give a hand to all of our sponsors. So if you enjoy tonight's lecture, and I have a feeling that you will, please come out to some of the remaining events in our speaker series, including a science cafe this Thursday entitled Branching Out, People of Color and the Great Outdoors. We're going to demystify that belief that black folks don't go outside. We're also having an event on August the 12th, so mark your calendars. It's a back-to-school minority STEM opportunity fair where minority students interested in STEM can meet over 20 STEM professionals and learn what they do as it relates to some of their interests in their lives. For more information, please log on to our website at naturalsciences.org for more details. So before I introduce our moderator and host for the evening, Karen Clark from Foxy 107-104, let me now introduce you to a woman who, without her, I would not have even known that living relatives of Dorothy Vaughan existed in our area, and that there is another exhibit beyond the race exhibit here in the Triangle that warrants everyone's attention. Please welcome Crystal Harton, Director of Programs and Strategic Initiatives and the Chief Diversity Officer at the Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center, UNC Chapel Hill.
Thank you, Amelia. Good evening, everyone. How are you? Wonderful to see you all here. I'm going to take just a few moments to introduce you all to a wonderful photo exhibit that exists at our Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center. I want to tell you a little bit about how this exhibit came about. and how I am now adopted into the Vaughan family. When in February of 2016, when it was announced that Taraji P. Henson's new movie was based upon this book called Hidden Figures, I began to research the topic of this book and realized that somewhere Moorhead Planetarium had dropped the ball, because with our connection to space travel and the history of Moorhead, we were not telling this story. So I immediately reached out to Margot Lee Shetterly, the author of the book Hidden Figures, and after a little bit of cyber stalking, email stalking, she responded and happily agreed to come to Chapel Hill in November of 2016 for a speaking engagement. And her one request was that we invite the Dorothy Vaughan's family. And of course, I said yes. And that was a life-changing moment. If you have not met, please talk to the Vaughans tonight, especially Miss Ann and Miss Peggy. My first meeting off an elevator was Miss Peggy looked at me and said, my mother is not on the wall. And it was not a hello, it was my mother is not on the wall. And we quickly corrected that, and I'll tell you how we did that. But Margot joined us in November. When Margot joined us in November in Chapel Hill, it was the opening, our hard opening of the photo exhibit. We decided that we needed to tell the story of these women because that was part of space travel and history, but we also wanted to tell a history of first in flight. We have a lot of our programming and shows revolve around flight, as you can imagine. So we started designing a photo exhibit. This is one of the pieces that you will see in the exhibit, which is a chronological map of the two parts of our photo exhibit. One side is about first in flight, one side is about women computers. Whoops, I can go back, okay. So this briefly will show you. We also have a long
The Wright brothers' historic first flight in 1903 opened a new era of aviation. It was an era in which Africa...
Oh, okay. I figured that out. To go along with the photo exhibits are video shorts on each side, whether it is the aviation side or whether it is the women computer side. On the aviation side, first in flight, we have photo panels discussing and explaining to our visitors the history of flight and the first in flight from Bessie Coleman to the Tuskegee Airmen, but also the Banning and Allen counterparts, William Powell, and all of the history that goes along with that is when we talk about transatlantic, the first and transatlantic flight as well. And then the other side of the exhibit focuses on the women computers and NASA, but we also talk about the 1800s with Ada Lovelace and the first women who were coding way back then. Along with this side of our exhibit, again, is another video short, which features a lot of the women from Hidden Figures, which features Dorothy Vaughan. And I will try and see if we can see a few pieces of this, a few moments of this.
Until the 1970s, computer was a NASA job title. It referred to mathematicians who performed calculations and plotted data for aviation and space research. Most of these jobs were held by women. NASA's first computers used tools like slide rules, basic calculating machines, and graph paper. When electronic computers became available to them, the human computers developed expertise in this new technology. In 1943, NASA's Langley Research Center in Virginia began employing African American women to work as computers. At that time, Virginia law required African Americans to use workrooms, cafeterias, and bathrooms separate from those used by other employees. Langley's African American computers were assigned to the segregated West Area Computing Section until 1958. A talented mathematician, Dorothy Vaughan was one of the first African Americans hired as a computer at Langley in 1943. A promotion 6 years later made her head of the West Area Computing Section and NASA's first African American supervisor. Vaughan and her colleagues, Mary Jackson, hired in 1950.
So these videos are available online. via our website and also on our YouTube channel. That is the first time the Vaughan family has seen those pieces of the video that we just completed to go along with this photo exhibit. And then you can see with our panels, we also highlight, a lot of people don't know that there's a North Carolina connection, that the first, one of the first women computers was from Hertford County, Virginia Tucker. And we highlight that in the photo exhibit as well. This is one of my favorite panels that you will see, which features Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, as you have seen. You will see the hidden figures and the West Building in the background, talking about Ms. Vaughan being the first African-American manager at NASA. And we also highlight Katherine Johnson, which Taraji played so well in the movie. And then we also bring to some of the firsts in more of our current time, ending with Dr. Mae Jemison as the first African-American woman in space. We also have a panel featured on Christine Darden. If you've read the book, you know Christine Darden plays a major role in the book. She's not in the movie, but she's a major component of the book. And so we want you to know, please come over to Moorhead and have a tour of these panels, these photo exhibit, these panels, and enjoy and share with your family and friends. This exhibit is free to the public. The videos are accessible online. But if you are a school, if you are an organization, if you're a science center, museum, whatever you may be, we have access to these panels and to these videos free of charge for download. These panels can be reproduced in your centers and locations for educational purposes, again, free of charge, and videos used for all educational purposes free of charge. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And we are so pleased to be in partnership with the Moorhead Planetarium. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to tonight's moderator for the evening. Karen Clark is the midday on-air personality at 107, Foxy 107, 104, and can be heard weekdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. She is a Durham native and a graduate of the School of Journalism at UNC Chapel Hill. And prior to working on air, Karen promoted artists for both Columbia Records and Capitol Records, working with artists like Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Will Smith, Lauryn Hill, Snoop Dogg, and a host of others. In addition to her work in the media, Karen also ran a successful and nationally recognized wedding and event planning company based here in Raleigh. When not working, Karen enjoys spending time with her uber-smart little boy, Brian, cooking, enjoying local theater, and moderating thought-provoking and meaningful events like the one that you will experience tonight. Everyone, please welcome Karen Clark.
I need to get Amelia to introduce me everywhere I go. She makes it sound so very good. I'm so delighted to be here tonight as a representative of Radio 1 Raleigh. Of course, I work for Foxy 107, 104. Please listen middays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. so that I can keep my job. But I'm also here representing our sister stations, K97.5 and the Light 103.9. Radio 1 is delighted to be a part of this event. And events like this, really events that empower the youth in our community, especially young women and young women of color. So thank you again for allowing us to be a part of this event this evening and all of the events that you have centered around this exhibit. I would like to introduce our speaker for the evening. Very excited about hearing exactly what she has to say. Dr. Tashni Dubroy is Shaw University's 17th president. She is a proud Shaw graduate who began her career as a research scientist at BASF and served as chair of Shaw's Department of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. Dr. Dubroy, who is passionate about community, science, and education, founded the brilliant and beautiful foundation dedicated to mentoring women in science, and recently she was named Female President of the Year by HBCU Digest. Dr. Dubroy earned her PhD in physical organic chemistry from North Carolina State University and holds a Master's of Business Administration from Rutgers University in New Jersey. While she will not be with us in Raleigh for much longer after her recent appointment as the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Howard University, we are delighted to have her with us here tonight. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Dubroy.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. All right, so I am president at Shaw University for approximately 5 more minutes. We may change guard while I'm doing this presentation, but it is certainly my honor to be here, and I am absolutely psyched to have been invited as a guest speaker to speak about something that I absolutely love, encouraging women in the sciences and encouraging young girls in particular to pursue STEM professions. I want to talk to you about my journey. I really want to, I hope that I will be able to inspire those of you in the audience who are about to either embark on new careers or start the second chapter of your lives. Never neglect that you are able to accomplish anything in life that you want to, and it would be absolutely outstanding if that pursuit could be of the sciences, because we are lacking women in science, and we're also in need of a more diverse audience in the science industry. You have a lot of work to do. I'm not the only one who's about to do some work. So you've got to stay social. So we're going to stay connected. There are tons of ways to do it. Can everybody hear me well when I step away from the podium like this? Yes, awesome. All right, so you can connect with me at PhD Tash or on Facebook, Tashni Dubroy, on Instagram at PhD Tashni, and all else. And don't forget, the handle for the museum is Natural Sciences. And then we have our hashtags, race exhibit, diversity, and STEM. So we got to get to tweeting, all right? And don't say anything bad about me. I'm leaving. You got to say some good stuff, all right? So whenever I mess up, let's just delete that and put something else. All right. This funny accent is not from Kingston, North Carolina. It's actually from Kingston, Jamaica. So I came to the United States to pursue a college education. I can tell you that that journey was pretty tough. Because initially, when I applied to Ivy League schools in the United States, I did not get into a single one. You can imagine, as a 17-year-old, thinking about emigrating to the United States and then realizing how tough it actually was, and that the branded universities that were spoken about so much in Jamaica didn't want me, an A student. But they took my C average friends, and that was just puzzling to me. And at 17, you would think that I would be dejected, but I had hope. And I'll talk about that as we go up through the night. I've been dabbing since I was a kid. So, this is me as a kid. So you don't have to ask any questions about how I turned into this adult, okay? You know, I'm dating myself because nobody has that armchair ever in 2017. But, you know, growing up in Jamaica, it was beautiful. I had great experiences, but I certainly had my share of adversity as well. And I want to talk about those types of things that my parents instilled in me, that I could do anything that I possibly wanted to do. And to those types of, affirmations that they were able to speak over me that allowed me to understand that, hey, the sciences were possible. I started, as I mentioned, on my journey to the United States at a community college because I did not get into a 4-year university. And it was one of those times when I had to decide, all right, Tashni, what are you going to do with the lemons? I'm going to make lemonade. I started at Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, and I decided that I was going to make the best of my experience. And when I matriculated at Kingsborough, I ended up as valedictorian of the year 2000. So anybody remember the year 2000 when we thought the world was about to shut down, right? And that we were all going to die. It was like, mass murder. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was like, listen, if we're going to go out, I'm going to go out in style because I want to walk up to the pearly gates and say, listen, let me in, I'm smart. So I was able to walk in as valedictorian of the year 2000 and went on from there to Shaw University. I did not know what an HBCU was. My sister was down here in North Carolina. She was actually attending Shaw, and she called home to New York. She said, Tashni, come down to Raleigh. It's just like Jamaica. Lies. Lies. Absolutely untrue. So I walked off the Amtrak train, and I went into the city of Raleigh, and I said, tell me something. And I had said it like this. I got to go Jamaican on y'all, okay? Get ready. I said, tell me something. What made you say that Raleigh is just like Jamaica? And she said, the people. I was like, man, you could have said that on the phone. I would have chose somewhere else, right? She was right. I love Raleigh, North Carolina. And it breaks my heart that, now I'm moving on to another city. But Raleigh's people, its populace, they are just phenomenal. And I've truly enjoyed my experiences here. So even though I've moved from Texas to Jersey, I found myself right back here with my family when it was time for us to raise our daughter. I moved on, as I said, to Shaw University. And Shaw was the institution that where I earned my bachelor's degree. And I can tell you that when I was in Jamaica, the population is approximately probably 95% black. So when I came to Shaw and everybody was like, oh, this is an HBCU, right? I'm saying, man, I've been going to HBCUs all my life, right? But the experience is so different. It's so rich. And I was able to appreciate African-American culture and the stories and the history. And so it is that when I went on to NC State University to pursue my PhD in chemistry, I got to see the differences between an HBCU and a PWI. Primarily, the number one difference is that at HBCUs, we do not wear pajamas to class, right? These are real differences, right? So all jokes aside, I got to appreciate both experiences. And I think just some of that serendipitously, I was able to take with me from life's experiences. So when we talk about race, are we so different? I don't think so. I've seen smart people in all different sizes, shapes, and colors, and I'm a testament to that. Moved on from NC State University to Rutgers, and I actually went to corporate America before assimilating into a part-time degree program at Rutgers University. But this business experience certainly helped me to become the entrepreneur that I am. So in Jamaica, everybody knows we all got 10 jobs. It's true. It's really true. We do have 10 jobs. Maybe. I don't know. But a stereotype that's associated with being Jamaican is often that we got 10 jobs, man, right? And so that entrepreneurial spirit that we call hustle, right? Back home, it was refined into business acumen. And so while working at BASF, the chemical company, I was working as a bench chemist. And this was down in Pasadena, Texas. We're in coveralls to work every day. But I was working on something called Ziegler-Natta catalyst. So this is now in the polyolefins or plastics industry. I was working on how it is we make catalysts for that industry. And then I met a VP on the business side of the company that said, I recognize the entrepreneurial spirit in you, and I'd like to take you to the business side of the company. And so it was baptism by fire, but I was able to have an experience as a global technology analyst. I moved on from there to become a procurement manager. So talk about mixing science and business, right? In the procurement management position, we were buying chemicals for the company. So I had to think about what we call strategic sourcing. How is it that we get from point A to point B? How is it that we purchase materials from China, get them here to the U.S., and ensure that we have a continuous pipeline of products for the industries that we serve? And then I took a risk. When I was working in corporate America, I had to decide at one point in time if I wanted to pursue a passion that I had. It turns out that I have a love for the hair care industry. And so while working in corporate, I decided to leave the comfort of my salary and explore my passion, which is hair care. And so my business partner and I formed a company called Tea and Honey Blends. So Tea and Honey Blends, we ended up bridging what we call the bench and the boardroom. And we said that beauty is our passion, but hey, science is our strength, right? That's how women walk out bold and just, with your hair, right? So that was what we were able to do, and, call all the other women scientists and saying, all right, we've got some products to make, come help us do it. And so the young lady on the left, Dr. Tiffany Bailey Lash, she's a Hamptonian, Hampton University graduate. Yes, Dr. Vaughan, paying respect to the Hamptonians tonight. And so we were able to develop hair care products and, gain notoriety because we were two women PhD chemists who walked across that stage at NC State University in 2011, the only two African-American scientists that year in the program. So here are a few of the products. Initially, we started off with a line of about 7 products, and then we moved on and created additional products. And then one day we walked into Macy's and they said, hey, we like your product, but your packaging sucks. So we had to transform it. They said it just like that. No, they didn't. They were a little bit more refined, but we ended up having to do, a little oomph, added oomph to the product packaging and to the brand as well. So Tea and Honey Blends, we catered to a variety of hair types. A lot of people, it was very interesting to learn so much about race, even in the hair care industry. A lot of the questions that we used to get when we started selling hair care products is that a lot of Caucasian women would say to us, is this shampoo for me? I said, is your hair dirty? Right? You never realize just how much marketing can affect how we think about chemistry, right? So don't forget, at the baseline of this, it goes back to science, right? We have to decide how it is that we cater to the needs of women all across the globe, right? And so we were able to sell in multiracial markets. After pursuing hair care for quite some time, one of the things that kept on popping up was people wanted us to go and speak to audiences where young people wanted to be inspired by 2 African-American female chemists. And so it spawned the Brilliant and Beautiful Foundation. Every year at North Carolina State University, my alma mater, we host a session with the Smart Scholars. So we take 100 young ladies from all across Wake County, and they walk into these sessions thinking that they're about to blow bubbles because it's shampoo. And once they walk in, we start teaching them chemical nomenclature. So they walk in thinking, man, I'm about to create a mess in this lab. But then we start their structured learning to teach them that there is science in your everyday environment. You can become a chemist because we actually have the labs being taught by GWIZ, so Graduate Women in Science. And while students are pursuing these laboratories, what we're doing is we're also training parents on how to raise a scientist. Because I can tell you, my sister, for example, she's an accountant. And my niece is very smart. She would like to become a scientist on days when my sister is not influencing her to become an accountant. And I remember one day she said to my niece that, it's okay if you can't do math because I couldn't do it either. And I quickly had to remind her the inability to do math is not genetic. So we have got to watch how it is that we speak to our kids, because not because you couldn't do math means they can't do math. They will be able to do math, but it often involves being in touch with the right math teacher. And it often involves being inspired by the right science teacher. I love to tell this story because this is how I became a scientist. I've been a scientist since I was in 9th grade. And it started with my high school teacher. We go to high school a bit earlier in Jamaica, but it started with my high school teacher, Miss McCoy. Miss McCoy said to me, after I was struggling with chemistry, I didn't like the subject matter, and she said, Tashni, the reason why you have such a hard time with chemistry is because you have a mental block against the subject. And I remember thinking, oh, that's so nice, Miss McCoy. Thanks for your advice. How do I remove this, right? And so as a young girl, you know, who wants to hear you have a mental block? Just give me the answer to the problem, please. And I thought about it, and the concept that I was having a problem with was called a mole. I didn't get what a mole was. And so I started researching multiple texts, and I realized after reading one particular book, and it said, a dozen is 12 items. A mole is 6.02 times 10 to the 23 items. And just like that, I fell in love with chemistry, right? Because I was able to understand it from a totally different perspective. Just one simple sentence that allowed me to open up a world of possibilities. And so I've stuck to that subject matter over this entire time. So at Brilliant and Beautiful, we try to make science fun, as indicated by this open-mouthed girl down here on the slide. And we try our best to introduce them to novel ways of pursuing the sciences. So in some sessions, they are knitting to Fibonacci sequences, for example. And in other settings, they're making shampoo, and then we bridge business with that. Once they make their shampoo, add fragrances, they then pitch to judges so that we can determine whose product we should buy. And so it's important for us to expose young people to the sciences very early. The reason why we target middle school girls is because it turns out that around age 10 or so is when young girls start saying, I can't. And for whatever reason, we're not sure what sets off that trigger, but they feel as if they cannot accomplish much in the sciences. And so it's so important to start speaking those words of affirmation. I tell my daughter, who is 8 years old, all the time, I say, you're smart, you're beautiful, and you're my number one. And those types of things resonate with her, because I want to ensure that she understands she can be anything that she wants to be. As I mentioned, parents are engaged in how to raise a scientist, and it really starts with encouraging young people, placing your daughters and your sons in sessions that the museum may have that relates to training kids in the sciences as well. And it also involves community support. So any chance that you get to volunteer, for example, all of these women on top here, they're all graduate women in science. And so any chance that you get to volunteer, there are tons of ways that you can inspire young girls to pursue the sciences. I did not find a mentor that looked like me until I was late into my 20s. Dr. David Schultz at North Carolina State University, he is a mentor of mine. He was my graduate advisor. And then Dr. Neil O'Reilly was my mentor at BASF. And he was also somebody who promoted me, right, throughout the organization. So that's why I was able to climb in BASF as well. And then not until I found Dr. Christine Grant, who is an exceptional engineer at NC State University, did I find an academic stalwart who has stuck it through with me this entire time. Sometimes I don't even know that I'm on TV, but I know by the time I get a text message, Tashni, just saw you on TV, girl, looking good, right? Because being a mentor comes, you know, it's so colorful. There's so many ways that you can encourage young people just to keep on pushing. And so it is that I try to foster a science identity in my child as well. God knew what he was doing when he gave me a girl, because it really helps me to talk to people like you and encourage you about how it is that I'm raising this kid, right? So I use her for a prop. She's not here tonight. There's nothing she can do about it. But all jokes aside, I encourage her in whatever it is that she does. And I remember I did not want to push the sciences on her. I just wanted to put it in her surroundings. So quietly, my husband says, you're going to be an engineer. Quietly, I say, you're going to be a chemist. But then we're like, hey, we're not forcing it on you, though. Whatever you want to choose, right? So she decided that what she was going to be is Tinkerbell. At around 3, we asked her, you know, honey, what do you want to be when you're older? And she says, I want to be Tinkerbell. And we started to cultivate the Tinkerbell attitude in her. We said, okay, maybe it's magical, you know. Some chemistry involves magic, okay. So then As she grew older, we said, all right, let's start, encouraging her with all kinds of imagery about scientists. And so we got with Dr. Max Stuffin. And so it started to create ideas within her. And so as she became about 6.5, 7, I said, honey, what do you want to become? She said, a zookeeper. So we're getting there. I'm encouraged. So next year I may ask her again and she may say, a veterinarian, it may come. So we're very encouraged, but she loves animals, absolutely loves animals. And so it is that, I always talk to people about blending their interests, because being a scientist is so expansive. It requires you to draw from your creativity, your innovation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with loving and appreciating art and being a scientist as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with embracing entrepreneurship and being a scientist, as I've told you about tonight. And so she loves writing. She's a published author in her school newspaper. And so, as we see her start to develop this sort of creativity, I feel as if she's on the right track, because when we talk about the left brain and the right brain, that concept has already been debunked so long ago, right? It's really about the blending of both sides of our minds and creating something that is innovative, that no one has ever done before, something of your interest that you can pursue and encourage others to come right behind you and explore as well. So after delving into entrepreneurship, I decided it was time for me to give back immensely, much more than I could if I sent a check to Shaw University. So I had the idea that I would go to Shaw University to teach. And when I started teaching at Shaw, I started as a chemistry professor. 3 months later, they said, hey, you've got an MBA, you've got great organizational skills. We'd really like it if you'd be our department chair over the natural sciences and math department. It involved the departments of chemistry, physics, environmental science, biology, and mathematics. And I said, I don't know what a department chair does, but anything that I can do to serve Shaw University, I'd be able to do. And when I tell you that was a setup, 36 faculty members, some of whom had already taught me when I was a student there. So you can just imagine this. I think I was 27 at the time. No, it was more than that. I was about 30 at the time, 30 or 31 at the time. So I walk in with my bubbly personality saying, hey, let's change what all we've been doing before, and let's move towards everything being technologically savvy, and we'll, do this in the classroom. We're going to have active learning, and everybody's like, let's not do that, right? But we eventually worked it out, and we did, and we started to think creatively about how it is that we introduce concepts to the classroom setting. Instead of punishing students about using their cell phones, we incorporated technology right in the classroom, and you can use your cell phones, use your iPads in order to engage in active learning. And so it is that I went from professor to department chair to special assistant to the president for process optimization. It's a concept that I also did in industry. And then lo and behold, after doing this for about 2 years and saving the university money, I gained the visibility of the board of trustees. I was nominated for the position of president, and I was 34 at the time. I never thought I would get it. So I remember an older gentleman said to me, hey, you know what you need? Some Hillary pants and some pearls. And I looked at him like, if you think I'm about to put on anything close to Hillary pants, you've got to be kidding me, right? And I thought about it. I thought about the audience that was about to interview me. And I said, man, it's going to be a traditional audience. Maybe I do need some Hillary pants and some pearls. So what did I do? I got some Hillary pants and some pearls. So I put it on, my navy suit and my pearls, and I landed the gig. And so I was absolutely honored to serve as Shaw University's 17th president, and especially to serve my alma mater. We have a concept at Shaw called This is Epic. And people all around the Raleigh community, they've bought into the EPIC tagline. But it actually means something. E stands for entrepreneurial thinking and excellence. P is for our position and placement in the marketplace. because we're committed to being known locally, nationally, and globally. I is for innovation, and C is for customer care, because we've got to take care of our students and also take care of our external customers as well. And so it is that we've been walking with the EPIC mantra for the past 2 years. As a result, we've built so many great relationships in the community. When I walked into Shaw University, we were experiencing 6 years of a 9% decline in enrollment. And it was my inaugural year as a college president, but we managed to turn that around. After a year, we had a 15% increase in student enrollment and a 70% increase in freshman enrollment. And then we had a $4 million fundraising gap. And I hired a very talented fundraiser. We call her my coin getter. And her name is Clarenda Stanley Anderson, but we hired her. And within 1 year, we were able to close that $4 million gap. And one of our philanthropists in this room is Jacqueline Wittenberg and her husband from the Wittenberg Foundation. People like them were able to invest in Shaw University. When this new president walked in and said, hey, my name is Tashni Dubroy. I know you don't know me, but I'm speed dating and I need all your money. And we were able to raise funds in order to shore up the finances at Shaw. And lastly, we experienced 2 years of net losses in assets. And so after a year, we were in the positive by 1.5 million. I tell you these things because I want young people in this room to understand that you can accomplish anything. Be bold. You've got to walk into rooms with oomph. Walk into rooms knowing that there is power in having a positive spirit. There's power in having a can-do spirit. And there is nothing cute about saying I can't. It's the type of attitude that allows people like Dr. Dorothy Vaughan to be successful. It's the type of attitude that allows people in your surroundings, strong women, to create and beget strong girls, and then use innovative tactics and mechanisms in order to accomplish the impossible. And so it is that I've been able to build diverse teams of people at Shaw University, and we've been able to gain the support of the community because we were committed to being inclusive, and we were committed to showing up when we said that we would. Those are the types of things that you've got to do as young people in this room. Practice what you preach, practice being a doer, and practice being reliable. But you've also got to arm yourself with a bold spirit. I always tell young people, don't be your biggest hater. There are tons of people right around you. Some are sitting beside you. Don't touch them, right? But there's tons of people who will tell you that you can't. And so never let your biggest barrier or your most significant barrier be you. Tell yourself that you can. You can pursue the sciences. STEM is tough, but you're tougher. And be committed to that. So now it is that I am embarking on a new journey, heading up to Washington, D.C. Pray for me. But what I'm leaving behind are relationships that I know will supersede my tenure as president. They've dubbed me a millennial president. I'm on the cusp. I almost didn't make it. Thank God for the 80s, right? So I've always enjoyed great relationships with our students, with our faculty, with our staff, with our external community. And then when it was time for me to pick a cabinet, I ensured that we had representation from various races and also that there were some strong women right beside me. And so it is that I would encourage you that whenever you're thinking about a path to pursue in your careers, that you always step outside of your comfort zone, because innovation happens outside of your comfort zone. There's no one that can say they've ever been able to accomplish much without being uncomfortable for a little while. I want to talk to you about being committed to being innovative, being committed to stirring things up, to being disruptive, because only through that type of disruption do you get innovation. And lastly, don't forget to do it while being fabulous. These heels are intentional. I gain power when putting on heels, right? So whatever it is that's in you that makes you unique, that makes you feel good, be committed to doing that. Sure, I wore the Hillary pants and the pearls in the interview. I got it. But then guess what? After that, I put on my pink dress, my sleeveless pink dress, and my heels, and we were all good again, right? So it's something about understanding who you are, staying true to who you are, so that you can be your best self. Ensure that you're always being genuine. That's the only way for you to be able to accomplish what you possibly can by being true to yourself. And believing in yourself. I always say, I believe I could, so I did. And that is the type of spirit that I'd encourage young people, especially young girls, to have. Its sciences are possible. It's very possible for you to pursue a career in chemistry, in mathematics, in physics, in biology. There's in coding, there's so many careers that are yet to be discovered that you will be able to pursue. They always say nowadays that one of the greatest skills that young girls will, or young people rather, will have is your ability to learn and then unlearn. Why? Because the world is changing so much. So the careers that young people in this room, I see some toddlers in the room, the careers that you're preparing these kids for, they don't even exist. But embrace their creativity. No writing on the wall, no crayons on the wall, it's okay, right? We're not going to put the crayons on the wall, but allow them to create in their coloring books. Allow them to talk. Give them the opportunity to speak. Don't shut them up at the dinner table, because it's through those exploratory conversations that you build strong scientists. Thank you.
Thank you for that engaging presentation. That was great. And what was it that you said? There's nothing cute about saying I can't.
That's right.
Everybody needs to write that down. There is nothing cute about that. So right now we're going to open the floor up to some questions and answers. Unfortunately, we will not be able to take questions from our overflow area and obviously people online, but if there are questions here in the audience where we are, we would be delighted to address those. Before we get into the Q&A, however, I would like to recognize the family of Dorothy Vaughan that is here with us tonight, and I will recognize everyone by name. Ann Hammond, her daughter. Peggy Vaughan, her daughter-in-law. Heather Vaughan Batten, her granddaughter. Michelle Vaughan Webb, also a granddaughter. Kirsten Vaughan, a great-granddaughter. And Dr. Tracy Vaughan Bennett, who is not with us this evening, but we would definitely like to recognize her. This family is absolutely dynamic. We had an incredible conversation. I know you're amused that we are so taken aback by your family and your family's story. And one of the things that we talked about before tonight's presentation is that it's amazing to you all that people know your family and that there are people all over the world who have now seen this movie, read this book, know Miss Dorothy's story, and are being empowered and inspired by it. I mean, just put yourself in that position. Imagine that one of your aunties or your grandmother or a cousin or maybe even your mom, somebody that you just know as mama, is now known internationally. And that is impacting your family to this day. Miss Ann Hammond said that she has been on the road, has been consistently busy, is booked through the fall because people want to hear more about your insight and your mother's experiences. And I know that that's fascinating and interesting to you because it's mama. It's just mama. That was mama to you. So thank you so much for opening your story, opening your family, and allowing us to be part of this incredible, incredible journey with you. Thank you so much. All right, so we've got some people in the audience that have microphones, and they are towards the back. If you have any questions for Dr. Dubroy, this would be the perfect time to answer them. And I know that we've got somebody that's going to be a little bit shy to get it started. She's like, no, I'm not shy. I'm not shy at all.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Dubroy. I would like to, well, first of all, let me tell you that I work for a North Carolina state agency. I work in human resources. And I'm continually frustrated by my agency's claim that we cannot find a diverse workforce, particularly in, it is a science agency and engineering-based agency and a law enforcement agency. And I continually hear that. Now, what I want to ask you is where can I find some associations or anything of any value that would help me to find people like you, people who have science backgrounds, people who have engineering backgrounds, so any kind of associations that you can refer me to.
Great question. So I can tell you that African American scientists and minority scientists at large are out there. So NOBASHE, for example. Anybody ever heard of NOBASHE? National Organization of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. So NOBASHE has a cadre of African American scientists who are well established, not only, and a pipeline as well, graduate students and professionals alike. NSBE, organization associated with engineers. I can tell you that you can find scientists there. There's a conference where blacks in higher education, we get together. It's the National Association of Blacks in Higher Education, right? So these are some of the organizations that I'm affiliated with. GWIZ is also a pipeline for women in sciences. We are out there, but it has to be an intentional search, right? If you are merely going to be satisfied with saying, oh, we don't have anybody in the pool, then you may not be successful in diversifying an organization. But when you start to intentionally look for scientists and minorities in particular, I can tell you that they're well-credentialed minorities in science that are available.
Thank you for that question. Let's take a question from this side of the room now.
Hey, good evening, Dr. Dubroy. Question, I work in the business of recruitment services and talent management, and I wanted to inquire about the subject of feedback. So in your professional career, in your academic career, what was the toughest piece of feedback that you received? And in retrospect now, it was good to hear, but then it was extremely hard to digest. What did you do? How did you implement it? And how do you think it helped you achieve where you are today?
So when I was pursuing my PhD at North Carolina State University, I remember, let's be clear, the PhD thesis in chemistry is very tough, right? And it's tough to wrap up. And in my case, I had to create crystals of the molecules that I was working on. And those crystals were very hard to create. So I would sing to them. They didn't come through for me. And so it's both an art and a science. Remember, blending the creativity? And so there were days when I would say, man, when am I going to get out of Alcatraz, right? And my graduate advisor, David Schultz, I remember my mom would always say to me, so Tash, when are you graduating? And I'm like, oh, Mom, I'll tell you when I wrap up the thesis. I got to make these crystals and then I'll be able to graduate. So don't buy your outfit just yet, okay? I'm going to try for May 2007. We'll get out of here soon. And she got so tired of me blowing her off that my mother took a Greyhound bus from New York to North Carolina, walked into my graduate advisor's office and said, hey, when's she graduating? That's a true story. I can't make that up. And I was so embarrassed, right? You can imagine, this is a professional setting, right? And my graduate advisor is a Caucasian man, and he's looking at this black Jamaican woman like she has lost her mind. And so he said to her, Tashni will graduate when she's ready to graduate. I watch her not try certain syntheses in the laboratory because she's afraid of failure. And he says when she gets over her fear of failing, that's when she'll be able to try anything, and then it will work. It was probably the most significant life-changing piece of advice that I've never received one-on-one, but it came through the conduit of my mother. And when she came back with it, I took that advice in a very meaningful way. And I said, why are you not trying the variety of things that you know you can try in order to be successful? And so I went back in the lab and I tried everything. And my work started to come to fruition. And so it was that I was able to wrap up the thesis at North Carolina State University. But I also want to add another element to that. Tiffany has been my accountability partner for a very long time. And so it is that we were able to go into business together. She was having a tough time too. She was wrapping up a dual degree in engineering and chemistry. And Tiff came into grad school a semester later than I did. And I remember as she said, you know, all right, Tash, I'm getting out of here in May 2007. And I'm saying, there's no way you'll be able to get out of here. But I didn't say that to her. I was a hater in my mind, okay? And so I was like, first of all, my thesis isn't wrapped up, so you're not getting out before me, right? And I went to Tiffany's house one day, and she had sticky notes all over her house saying, Tiffany, you are smart. Tiffany, you can accomplish anything. Tiffany, you are beautiful, and you will graduate in May 2007. And as she started to speak these words of affirmation over herself, she started to wrap up her thesis. And so I did what any normal person would do. I went home, I got my sticky notes. I said, Tashni, you look darn good. Tashni, you're smarter than Tiffany. Tashni, Tiffany is not walking out on that stage without you. And so we did together, right?
I love it. I love it. Do we have a question from this side? Okay, down front.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anna Alisea, and I'm also working on a PhD currently at NC State in environmental toxicology while working full-time. I'm also a bench chemist also at BASF.
Nice.
Thank you.
You're
So
like mini-me, okay?
I was cheering the whole time. Didn't you see me? One of the things that I struggle with is finding a mentor that I can communicate with openly. As you mentioned, it took you a while to find a mentor that looked like you.
Right.
Of course, we all know there's not a lot of minorities in STEM, so how do you manage those relationships, and do you have any feedback for people that are currently looking forward to build a relationship with a mentor?
Hi, mentee. Okay. Well, you know, number one, I would be more than happy to speak with you about your journey. And you know, I have so many young women in particular who are my mentees. I'm amazed at how it is that, you know, when you become a professor, you get engaged in their lives, when they have children, when they get married, you know, when they change their careers. It's so interesting to watch them over the years develop into the beautiful human beings that they are. And now I can do it via Facebook, right? So I get to keep up with their lives. I'd be more than happy to speak with you. There are quite a few things that I do in terms of finding mentors. And some of my mentors don't even know they mentor me because they do it from a distance. I read their books. I watch them on TV. Oprah and I are very great colleagues. She just doesn't know, and that's okay, right? Because I like O. But, you know, in terms of empowerment, I have people that I look up to, and I say, man, that's a bold female. And I take those parts of their experiences and help to augment mine. But I think it's important for you to identify what are the gaps that you may have and seek mentors that have those gaps as their strengths. And then where are you trying to go, and seek someone who's actually walked that path or been there, and you know, you can be able to link with that person as well. And I want to introduce a word that some people in the audience may not have heard of, and that's a sponsor. So you can have mentors, you can have sponsors. And the difference being, a sponsor is someone who can take you from one level, A, to level B, and never necessarily have that type of bonded relationship that a mentor and a mentee have, but they are responsible for elevating you to the next level of your career or, your life, whatever it may be. So there's a differentiation between the two, but both have been instrumental in my life.
Okay, we are just making connections here tonight. You see how that works out? Let's do one on this side of the young one in the green.
Okay.
Okay, let's do the one in the back, and then we'll come down front to the young lady in the green.
Good evening, Dr. Dubroy. My name is Shanika Thomas, and I work for a local nonprofit that builds girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And we sell a couple of cookies. And I know that my question is, how do you, as an organization that offers STEM opportunities, like we offer robotics and we offer summer science camp and those kinds of things, find girls to be interested or to sign up for those programs? And as girls or parents of girls, how do you find those organizations to partner with so that your young son or daughter can have the opportunity to participate in STEM programming?
Thank you, Shanika. I actually know Shanika, so this is funny, right? We did a partnership with the Girl Scouts, but no, great question. Well, number one, the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences website. So let's start there. Shameless plug. But let's start there. One of the things that we do, we partner with schools throughout Wake County and beyond, disseminating emails to counselors, to STEM teachers. So we've had a great partnership with MSCN because of Brasco Williams over by North Carolina State University. And there are multiple MSCN sites all across the state of North Carolina. Word of mouth has been our most immense marketing. We always use social media when we're trying to engage parents in particular, because we try to encourage parents of young girls to come to our camps. So that's been our most significant buy-in. But we never neglect to form those relationships with schools so that they know when we're having activities in the community. We've partnered with Girls Who Code. We've partnered with Black Girls Code. We've partnered with Imhotep Academy. That's also out of NC State University. So can you tell that I really enjoyed partnering with my alma mater, right? But we've done those types of things, and we've been able to target especially the Southeast Raleigh population. And the reason is that it's an underserved populace with it right here in the Raleigh community. And Shaw University has a history with the Southeast Raleigh community. We've been an anchor in the Southeast Raleigh community for ages. And so it is that when we have activities on our campus, there are many young people that will come right on over to Shaw to pursue their camps there.
Thank you. Stand up so we can hear you.
My stepdad is teaching me coding, and I was wondering if you think Python is a good coding language.
Oh, great. Yeah. So. Well, first of all, so is that your sister?
That's her friend.
Is that your friend? Okay, so I'm going to give both of you these bags. Thank you for being so brave.
And what's your name? Can you tell us your name?
Max.
Hi, Max.
Oh, so cute. All right. So here's the funny thing. I know nothing about coding, okay? Absolutely nothing. But serendipitously, about 3 weeks ago, we had a coding camp at Shaw University's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. And it was a camp that was done with a partnership with the Carolina Small Business Development Fund. And in the coding camp, guess what they're using? Python. So, besides that, I have no clue whether Python is great or not, but I can tell you that even at the college level, that is what they were using to teach the coding course.
Question down here.
Oh, Ooh, here, all right, woman scientists in the room.
No,
Sure, go ahead.
I studied physics and did a lot of programming, but Python I used a lot for making my plots.
Yes.
And Python is a great introduction to programming languages. And then from there, you can step up to either C++ or Java, which is usually very widely used in industry. Once you know those languages, then you just kind of, it's like once you start learning a foreign language, it becomes easier to learn other foreign languages.
Yes.
So Python is a great stepping stone. I know that in some of our physics classes, they use Python for the labs because it's a nice, easy coding tools. And even in my research, I did both C++ and Python.
Beautiful.
And even Fortran. So definitely start with Python. That's a great way to go. And there's some great programs online for that.
I love it. Thank you very much.
And Amelia, we have another question down front too.
Good evening. Thank you again for coming. Two-part question. One is for myself and the other one is for my daughter. The first question is, for myself, can you go back over the EPIC mantra?
Yes.
And then the second question is for your foundation. How soon should we sign up? Because we want to be involved.
So EPIC, the E stands for Entrepreneurial Thinking and Excellence. And we did that intentionally because we wanted to infuse entrepreneurial thinking throughout the entire organization, whether we're improving business processes or teaching young people in the classroom setting how to be entrepreneurial. P is for the position in the marketplace. Shaw wants to be a well-known brand locally, at the national level, and globally. I is for innovation, right? When we talk about creativity, if we're not using our creativity, then what's the point of being in higher education? And C is for customer care, because we realized that we had a customer care problem. Our students would say to us, hey, I don't feel as if I'm getting the best treatment when I go to the financial aid office or, in student affairs or whatever it may have been in the academic affairs experience. So we were intentional about tending to their needs, and we placed it in that easy acronym so that the entire organization would remember it. And then you asked about your daughter being, so what I'd love for you to do is go to brilliantandbeautiful.org, and she can sign up to be part of the foundation's activities. We start at middle school, so usually, that 5th through 7th grade time.
Do we have any other questions on this side of the room?
Oh, and I want to give her a prize. Here you go. There you go.
Good evening, Dr. Dubroy, Pam Hardy, and Shaw University alumna. My question is, can you talk about some of the skill sets that you identified in yourself, as well as skill sets that sponsors identified in you, and what you did to build on those to get you where you are today?
So let's just talk about hustle. Can we just keep it real and say it's hustle, right? If you'll notice, the way that I speak, I tend to talk to lay people, right? I talk to multiple audiences, and I try to relate to everyday audiences. So when I was younger, and I was in high school at the time, I remember we didn't have prefabricated pom-poms, right? This is a developing country. So while you had all these pom-poms with beautiful, grasps, we didn't have those. And so I would go to the plastic factory and get all of the rejected plastic, and I would take it to my house, and whatever color the plastic was, I made sure that it matched what we call the sport houses, so it's like intercollegiate teams. So I would make sure that it matched that, and I'd create pom-poms and sell them to my friends, right? In addition to that, water in Jamaica is a scarce commodity. Good water, good cold water, right? And so I had an igloo, and I would make sure that when we were at sports day and everybody got dehydrated, I said, all right, water $10, right? And so those are the types of, I was doing that for my kid. So you can just imagine having parents who were entrepreneurs cultivating that type of spirit in me. And then having later professionals recognize that business acumen. So my yearning to understand business and how it is that we had, we were able to create a product and then garner interest for somebody to buy it. The other part of my personality that I think we should cultivate in young people is curiosity. I talk about not telling kids to shut up at the dinner table because I think that's so important. But, you know, listen, it takes a sacrifice, right? My daughter speaks incessantly for the entire day. I counted it once. She said, "Mommy," like 30 times in a minute. And so, you know, it really does require us to listen and actively engage with our children, because you think that the learning only occurs in school, but so much of it occurs in our homes as well. I can't tell you how many times I've augmented my daughter's learning experience just by taking her to museums. She's been to the North Carolina Museum of Sciences many times. We've gone to the History Museum. We've gone to Marbles Museum. Placing them in those spaces and allowing them to be creative has been outstandingly helpful, and that creativity has not been lost in any phase of my life. And then I speak about having a bold spirit. I approach problems in a manner that many people do not. I look at problems, I gather data, and I say, all right, you know, I believe that we can solve this. I ensure that, you know, teams are working together. If you were to come in a cabinet meeting of mine, what you would find is that we start off cabinet meetings with a prayer, and then the second thing that we also do is have a moment of gratitude. Because the other skill set or other attribute that I think is important is having a positive, thankful spirit. So that moment of gratitude, usually it's filled with family, stories about family, stories about thanking for health, right? And it's the same type of positive spirit that I approach any challenge in life with. I believe that there's power in having a positive spirit. And if you can motivate kids and teach them these types of basic personality traits that transcend any profession, I think that's how we teach kids to be successful.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Dubroy. My company is called Student Empowerment, a nonprofit. Is it possible to create an academic caucus between Howard University and Shaw? What we need more of is, we concentrate on something called STEM student response. We actually need to hear more from grade level to college in terms of what we've learned and how we're going to apply it to the real world. Literacy in healthcare, literacy in math when it comes to actuarial science. But is it possible to create an academic caucus that would have some exchange between Shaw and Howard so that our learning community and greater community might get the benefit of some of the new ideas that are coming?
So, great question, and that has already started, right? So, Pam, this is for you now. So, I want to let you know already. So, I'm a collaborative leader, right? So, I always think about what type of partnerships we can form so that we augment the work that we're doing on Shaw University campus. And this summer, a few of our STEM scientists are actually at Howard University in their medical sciences department pursuing internships. So that's a start. The other thing and another manner in which we intend to collaborate, and this is just serendipitous, Shaw has an innovation and entrepreneurship center right in downtown Raleigh, about a block away from the campus. How about Howard has an innovation center at the Google campus in California, and they call it Howard West, right? So, and our CAPE sites, so we have about 8 sites that are centers for alternative programming in education, so meaning we cater to adult learners. We have 8 sites across North Carolina from the mountains to the coast, and at those sites, we've partnered with American Underground, that is a Google entrepreneur site as well. And so we've been able to place our students right in those settings where they can walk out of Shaw University's doors and into the workforce where they will have the skills that they need to be successful there. So we are revamping quite a bit of our curricula, starting with technology, so that industries and corporations can help us to mold what the curriculum looks like. And we've already started that. So it is not uncommon to find collaborations, not only between Howard and Shaw, but also Shaw University and other HBCUs as well. one of the things that I always say whenever I hear about a Shaw grad doing something, whether in a foreign country or outside of the state of North Carolina, the first thing I'll do is tweet and say Shaw is in Israel. I don't care where you go, you're still a Shaw beer, right? And so you're still representing us. And so I feel as if Shaw will be represented in Washington, D.C. I am certainly going to be able to get Shaw in the rooms where I am, because there is a significant need for small private HBCUs to be represented so that we can sustain our institutions financially and otherwise. Sure.
Is it possible to actually have an academic caucus for public benefit so that we might get more directly? Basically, the public needs to know more. And internally, you have a collegiate thing, but we don't have a public
access to it. So I was trying to avoid that question because I didn't want to sign a contract tonight. Yeah, exactly. But I understand exactly where you're going with that, and we can explore the possibility.
Okay.
Yes, honey? You want to get the mic? Where's the mic? Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes, we do. Most certainly. So, and those job fairs have actually been what we call epified. Okay, we made it up. We coined a word. But they've been augmented by our corporate partnerships in Raleigh. Our Raleigh partners have been so, gracious to Shaw University. Not only are they coming on our campus to recruit talent, but their HR folks are reviewing resumes of our students in order to, refine them and make them more palatable for the industries where they'll serve. So that partnership has been extremely strong.
Great evening, Dr. Dubroy. Thank you for your inspirational talk tonight. And I think it's a perfect segue because I actually represent Red Hat along with my colleagues, and we're your neighbor, and we've actually had the pleasure of hosting the BEW finale event last Friday, the Black Entrepreneurship Week, in partnership with the Innovation Center.
Yes.
So my question is, we know that resiliency is a key component of success. So I would love to hear what's been one of your biggest struggles or barriers that later turned into a stepping stone or a strength that you've been able to utilize for your own personal success?
I'm going to tell you all my business if I go into that. So, prior to this, I had not experienced ageism. This was new to me. So another ism, throw internationalism and sexism. Now I got ageism to deal with, right? I remember a woman, and it's so unfortunate, right? A woman saying to me after I had done a speaking engagement at a church, and I wore pants on the pulpit. I didn't know that I could not wear pants on the pulpit, right? It was cold, it was winter, and so I am Jamaican, and I was cold, so I wore pants. But it was very offensive to her. And I respected and understood that. But also, I wanted to know, did you hear the message that I gave? Did you hear my testimony? Did you hear my story? And she said, I was talking to her about that, and she said, it's because you're young. Now, I know that, you have to focus on the sound and ignore the noise. That was noise. I focus on the sound. The message that I gave, there were other people in the church community that came up and said, you blessed me. That's what I needed to hear today. And my age has nothing to do with my productivity, right? It turns out that, sure, I'm young, but I bring youth, I bring agility, and I bring innovation. I bring my experiences from multiple facets of my professional career to the position at Shaw University. So even though I have come across, people who will comment on my age, and there's some people who do it in a positive manner, saying, my gosh, I didn't know you were so young. That's positive, right? Saying, are you president of the SGA or president of the school, right? I'm like, I'm president of the whole school, right? So that kind of thing I can live with. But then when you start speaking negatively about someone, that's when it gets, a little bit muddy. So all I've been able to do is embrace my youth. And the thing is, like Anne, my mom, her name is Greta, she looks so young right now. She's in her 70s. So I'm going to look this way for quite some time.
Okay. We have this one last question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Letitia Scarborough. Thank you, Dr. Dubroy, for being here. My dad graduated from Shaw. He didn't let me go to Shaw. He was totally against it. But thank you for being here, and thank you for your service, and the best of luck when you go to Howard. I am a network engineer for a large IT firm in RTP. Nice. And although I'm a network engineer, the HR calls me a lot to recruit from HBCUs because blackface, hello, hi, female, hey, again. And so I'm like the poster child, if you will, which I don't mind at all because it's my passion. Right. However, when I get some of the students, there is a lack of professionalism in some of them. And there's also a bit of culture shock for them. And I'm only one person and I have a lot of customers, so I try my best to mentor them and aid them, but I need more help, right? So my question to you is, what can corporations start doing in order to aid the students earlier before they come to corporate America, and prevent that feeling of an outsider?
Beautiful question. So, I always believe that, it goes both ways. So you ask, what can corporations do to help? I feel as if we have got to exhibit reciprocity. So when I started at Shaw University, I remember our internal stakeholders, they would say, Raleigh hates us, right? Because only time that they publish anything about Shaw is when it's negative. And so one of the very first people that I met with, who is now a great colleague of mine and a respected mentor, was Orridge Quarles. At the time, he was publisher at the News and Observer. And I went in and I said, hey, why keep saying naughty things about us, right? But I spoke to him. I said, Mr. Quarles, I want to find out at our internal community perceives that you only print negative information about Shaw. And he says, well, I never hear your stories. Nobody sends me anything. And when you come into adversity and we call over there, you don't answer the phone. Because you know what the culture thinks, right? Don't answer, they'll go away. And it's a totally different thing with the media. You don't answer and they say, oh, really? We're going to publish what we want. So it was a totally different situation. And I had to go into various rooms and reintroducing Shaw University. So in the corporate setting that I'm very familiar with, I was able to talk to them about cultivating talent way before it was time for students to graduate and walk into their workforce. We have to talk about getting freshmen, acclimated to industries that they're going to be in. And so we opened up the door. Fidelity Investments was one of our very first partners that started accepting Shaw University students very early in their tenure. And so through that, we're able to acclimate students to an environment that is much more diverse than the current Shaw University student body. Additionally, we had to do some things on the inside as well. Shaw University is a historically black college, but it doesn't mean that we only accept African American students, and that's a common misconception. And so we had to look at ourselves and say, what does our diversity metric look like? And what does our student population look like? And what is it that we can do so that all students of all races understand that this education is for them as well? And so by targeting Hispanic populations, we instituted a soccer team, for example, and we've been able to garner so many students, attract so many students just because we have a sport that appeals to them. And by doing that, by hiring professors from various races and being intentional about it, we've been able to initiate some of that change. And I've also said to corporate, I like to speak directly. You know, I don't really hold back and try to be politically correct and mince words. But I've also said to hiring managers, I said, listen, don't discriminate against the names on the applications. And I've told them that, I said, embrace the diversity. Because it's just a reality, right? It's just a reality. Introverts hire introverts, extroverts hire extroverts, right? We tend to, go towards what's familiar. And so I've had those frank conversations, and you would be surprised to see how receptive people are when they feel that they can freely communicate with you. So that's really helped to augment what it is that we're doing on the campus. So people like you, we need you. We need your help in coming to talk to young college students and explaining to them what their social media brand should look like, explaining to them why it's important for them to cultivate that brand very early. It's one thing to hear it from, your college president, but another to hear it from a young person in industry who has, walked the path that they're pursuing.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to all of these incredible questions that we've had this evening. I wish that we could stay for another 2, 3, 4 hours. I feel like we could get that much information out of you.
Well, I have one more prize to give away.
Oh,
all right. So this is for any kid under 12, okay?
Raise your hands if you're under 12.
So I'm going, but I got to ask a question.
Oh.
So this is a question. So I like to talk about the P's in my messages. And I know that there are tons of P's that I've probably touted throughout the entire talk. So if anybody can tell me a theme of my life that begins with the letter P, that would be great. And you will get what's in this goodie bag. So let me tell you what's in here, because I've just been giving away black bags. Parents don't even know what's in there. All right. So here's one, cool physics activities for girls. There's a book. There's a note from me. Don't throw it away. Save it, okay? You never know. I might be president of the United States. And then here are some goggles, and they're funky goggles too. And then we've got some Shaw paraphernalia, a Shaw pen, because you're going to matriculate at Shaw. And we've got this little keychain here, a mouse pad. It's a lot of, who put all of this stuff in here? Candace, giving away all my goodies. Okay, so mouse pad and a notebook, okay? Nice. So that's a lot of stuff. I might take this home. All right, so what begins with P? And then I'll let Karen choose. I don't want to be caught up in that part.
Okay, the very first hand I saw was that little hand over there that's standing up in the back.
Aw, too cute.
With the cute natural puff. What's your name? Kelsey?
Hilson.
And what is, do you know what the P is? What is it?
Aw, yay! You gonna come and get it? Great
Congratulations.
job. All right. Here you go.
I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Koster for some closing remarks before we get out of here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Radio 1, to begin with. But let me right away, before these closing remarks, recognize among you Councillor Corey Branch of the City of Raleigh. The City of Raleigh was one of our esteemed sponsors for Race Are We So Different. Welcome, Councillor. You are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a wonderful sight in this evening's WRAL Theatre here at the Museum of Natural Sciences. I think in so many respects history is being made tonight. One of those angles is that this museum's mission of illuminating the interdependence of nature and humanity through questions of what do we know, how do we know, what's happening now, and how does the public participate, has never found a conjunction with sleeveless blue dresses, pearls, high heels, and a love for hair. But let me just digress to do some more thank yous, which are very appropriate, because having Dr. Tashni Dubroy here on maybe one of her finale, but not forever, public functions here in Raleigh, before she goes to Washington, D.C., has been made possible by a vision that started a dozen years ago, and I will only do this in very brief and partial note form. But it is rare that the museum field, and there are 35,000 museums in the United States, of which this is really one of the more innovative ones at the state level and the national level and active globally, that we the museum field, rarely somehow accept that ideas for new exhibitions should come from outside of ourselves. It was a dozen years ago in Washington, D.C., that the American Anthropological Association thought that it was high time that Americans have a better grasp of this thing called race, that we are all out of Africa, that we've been moving and mixing ever since, as it says upstairs in the exhibit, Race Are We So Different, and that we're 99.9% the same DNA, as our sponsor, Charmaine Royal at the Duke Center this morning was saying with me to 100 HR professionals at the PNC Arena. That's the situation we're in, and yet the reality socially is so different. So I'd like to give credit first to the American Anthropological Association, who asked that question and persisted with it in order to cause the museum field now to look back and say, for the last 10 years, Race Are We So Different has been crisscrossing this country and Canada, from museums and places like the Mayo Clinic, bringing the story of Race Are We So Different. They're not represented this evening, but Ed Lebo, a colleague of mine who's the executive director, and his predecessors who have been on the stage during this series would be very appreciative of your presence and what's happened here since. Leaping forward, you heard from Amelia at the beginning that organizations, visionary local organizations, like the City of Raleigh, like the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, like Duke Energy, have enabled this exhibition to be here for free in this free museum. That's a wonderful thing. This exhibition is drawing as many per day as some of our highest ever attending exhibitions like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the real artifacts from Titanic. And that's an incredible experience for the museum, and we're very pleased about that. In particular, already recognized, but appropriately again, is the museum's, one of the museum's members of its board of directors of its nonprofit Friends, and that's Alfred Mays of the Borough's Welcome Fund, one of the nation's great philanthropists. And I'd like to again ask for your appreciation, because it's Alfred Mays and his fund that have sponsored this exhibition's speaker series. And in that regard, I'd like to mention that the Borough's Welcome Fund STEM portal is a resource for the gathering of feedback on this. So if you'd like to go online to the NC STEM Center, that's NC-STEM for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Maths, Center, all one word, .org, you can register your opinions about what's happened here this evening. My next and almost last thank you is to go to that person who approached us 6-8 months ago and said, I think I can help you draw a roster of great speakers to accompany this exhibition, and that's Dr. Irma McLaurin, one of the preceding presidents of Shaw University, who was recognized by Tashni Dubroy. So thank you, Irma. And lastly, let me just make a few comments about our distinguished keynote just now, because I think what we have in Dr. Dubroy is an amazing combo of traits that we've sampled this evening, from a brilliance in science to the management of research, to the acumen in administration, to entrepreneurship, to innovation, to poise, to sleeveless blue dresses, to clearly a skill of poised, diplomatic, local and global communications. We are indeed graced by the years you've spent in Raleigh, and I'm sure in all your name that we collectively, enthusiastically, warmly, wonderfully welcome your presence here, and don't think you're ever leaving. Sign MOUs before you leave. But particularly all best wishes as you make the move to Washington, D.C. to join the legendary Howard University. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Tashni Dubroy.